Today I'm delighted to bring you the first of two presentations which were created by the Aerospace Medical Association, telling us all about aerospace medicine. This is the first one and relatively short, and the second longer one will also be uploaded. So what is aerospace medicine? And it's quite helpful to think of it in the context of the environment that we normally live in and the environment that we can be exposed to when we're flying or going to space, for instance. So when the human body is exposed to environments out of our evolved tolerances, it doesn't always behave as expected or as normal, you might say. And this is a photograph of two astronauts on the International Space Station. You can probably notice a couple of things. The first is that they are more or less just floating there because they're in a state of free fall around the Earth. You can also notice that the International Space Station is a very cluttered place. And the last thing is that they're performing an experiment. Of course, humans have evolved in a specific environment. Life on Earth has been underway for a very long time, and we have a constant gravitational force of 9.8 meters per second squared, atmospheric pressure close to 760 millimeters of mercury, and an atmosphere composed of 21% oxygen, 79% nitrogen, and some trace gases. And the average temperature is around 24 degrees Celsius. And of course, this is at sea level, and conditions do change depending whereabouts on the Earth you are. Humans being humans, we love to explore, and of course we didn't just stay at sea level, just as humans didn't stay in Africa. They migrated out of Africa and now can be found literally all around the world. So we like to climb mountains, we like to fly in fast jets, and we especially love the opportunity to go to space. And this is just a beautiful photograph from the cupola in the International Space Station, looking down at Earth from above. And of course, if you go to space, you go to a place where the force of gravity can't be perceived. Doesn't mean it's not there. If you're only on the International Space Station, there's still a large proportion of Earth's gravity present, but because you're in a state of free fall, you're essentially experiencing weightlessness, so you're not feeling the effects of gravity in the same way that you do on Earth. And humans have also subjected themselves to all sorts of acceleration forces, and this sled, for instance, is accelerating at an equivalent of 40 times the Earth's gravity, so 40 G. And you can imagine that would probably be quite difficult to tolerate for a long period of time. If you go to space, there is no atmospheric pressure. So there's no air to breathe, and you have to be completely enclosed and protected from the environment because the ambient pressure is zero. Humans being explorers, we also like to explore under the ocean, and one interesting little fact for you is that for every 10 meters you go down, the pressure increases by 1 atmosphere because of the weight of the water above. So in this example here, the pressure at the bottom of the ocean is actually 1,000 times that at sea level. So no human could survive that unprotected, and the craft that are used have to be extremely pressure resistant so that they're not just crushed by the pressure. Humans love to try out extreme altitudes, and these fighter jets fly so high that you need supplemental oxygen and pressure. And people also like to jump out of things which are very high up. and the same applies, at least as far as supplemental oxygen is required. There are plenty of environments on the Earth that can be very, very cold, the Arctic and Antarctica being two examples. And conversely, if you are returning from space, the temperature during re-entry can be hot enough to melt a spacecraft, so you need a protective shield to stop that happening. Aerospace medicine practitioners care for people in every corner of the globe, whether it's on the ground, in the air, in space, under the water, and beyond it. And the International Space Station orbits at a height of about 400 kilometres and travels at 28,000 kilometres per hour. It orbits every 90 minutes, so the astronauts see 16 sunrises and sunsets every single day. And thinking about how aerospace medicine is practiced, we've already noted that humans often explore environments that are dangerous and inhospitable. However, humans are very resourceful, so just being an intelligent creature, we can learn, we can prepare, train, and adapt to most environments. And if you sum it up, in essence, aerospace medicine is the medicine of extreme environments. Aerospace medicine specialists can come from the full range of medical specialties and also work with professionals from many other disciplines. It's very much a team sport. You often hear that said about space exploration or human space flight, but it's equally applicable to aerospace medicine generally. And all these diverse people work together to keep people healthy in Earth's atmosphere and beyond. Like many areas of health, there are four key aspects: the clinical, research, education, and policy. And in the little box on the right, there's an example of the wide range of people who work together with aerospace medicine specialists. So you don't have to be a doctor to be interested in aerospace medicine or involved in aerospace medicine, which is one of the really nice aspects about it. And if you're looking at clinical aerospace medicine, there are two broad examples here: the contingency or emergency response, so remote medical care out in the field, in-flight telemedicine, so advising and assessing at a distance, orbital and interplanetary telemedicine, even more challenging if you're thinking about going to the moon or going to Mars, search and rescue activities, disaster preparedness, and accident investigation. Screening and prevention is also incredibly important because that helps to ensure the safety of both aircrew and passengers. So pilots and aircrew have to undergo regular screening by aviation medical examiners. In Australia, these are called DAMEs, or Designated Aviation Medical Examiner. This also applies to air traffic controllers, astronauts, flight controllers. There are many health maintenance activities and occupational health and wellness activities. There are many fascinating aspects to aerospace medicine research, and just some of them are included here. To begin with, human factors, which is the relationship between humans and machines and equipment and the built environment. And that can include things like habitability, ability to live comfortably in that environment, survivability, and user interfaces and control surfaces, so how people interact with those machines or equipment. Environmental effects and mitigation, thinking about what happens at high altitude, hyperbaric or increased pressure, hypobaric or decreased pressure, non-standard gravity. Now we have 1G on the Earth. The Moon is about 17% of Earth's gravity and Mars about 38%. and then you have microgravity in between, which is an effective absence of gravity. So you also have to think about transitions between gravitational environments and radiation countermeasures. The higher up you go, the more radiation you're likely to be exposed to. From the physiology point of view, the sensory effects of being in an unusual environment, which can contribute to spatial disorientation, or people might experience body system specific responses. Behavioural health and performance is really important. That can begin with crew selection, crew resource management, which is how people work together as a crew. Fatigue management, social isolation, which is important in places like Antarctica, or if you're thinking of being on the moon or going to Mars. Operations and contingency planning, absolutely essential. Try to anticipate what might go wrong and plan for it. Autonomous health systems, because we're not going to have as many health systems available as if you're in a capital city, for instance. Search and rescue techniques in the event that something does go wrong. Life support systems have to be functional and reliable, and fitness for duty criteria. Very, very essential that people should actually be in a fit state to be able to do their job. Aerospace medicine education is not just for doctors, it's actually quite relevant for a whole lot of people who work in the field of aerospace. We have to think about pilots and aircrew, whether this is military or civilian or people who are training to be pilots. And with doctors, this can include general practitioners who might be looking after people who want to fly, aviation specialists, aviation medical examiners. The importance of continuing medical education or continuing professional development. It's the same as any other field. Really, really important to stay up to date. And research, which is also important to keep things up to date and keep knowledge moving forward. Nurses are really important, both for clinical practice and as administrators and researchers. Paramedics, you might have flight medics, critical care medics, and also public health practitioners. Wide range of professionals involved in aerospace industry, whether that's engineers, students, and both civilian and military practitioners. Graduate students across a whole range of disciplines. And like most professional areas, there are many, many different types of training that you can undertake. That might include aerospace physiology courses, online courses, university courses, and if you are a medical practitioner, and especially if you're living in the USA, aerospace medicine residencies. Aerospace medicine activities don't just happen in isolation, they're actually very relevant for a whole lot of areas of everyday life and also national and international activities. There's civil and military aspects, and the defence aspect for the huge workforce in defence, particularly in countries like the USA, which has a very large military. Transportation health, so air flight is not just for passengers or for the military, it's also used very extensively for transport. Accident investigation and prevention, and in that regard I can certainly recommend watching the Air Crash Investigation series. It's one of my very favourite TV series because it's always really interesting and it shows just how thorough the investigations are and how dedicated the investigators are as well, and you always learn something from it, so definitely worth having a look if you haven't seen any episodes previously. Training requirements, it's always good to set out minimum training standards. There are government space activities, growing area of commercial space activities, and behavioural health issues are always going to be relevant, especially when they're affected by factors such as addiction or fatigue or mental illness. If you want to be an aerospace medicine specialist, there are many more opportunities overseas than in Australia. But in Australia, we do have the Australasian College of Aerospace Medicine. There are some aviation medicine training positions, not very many, but these do occasionally come up. And there are also opportunities as Air Force medical officers and GPs and DAMEs. If you're based overseas in the US, then there are dedicated aerospace medicine residencies, as well as some newer space medicine fellowships. And if you're in Europe, there are opportunities through the European Space Agency to develop your skills in being a space physician. So where do aerospace medicine specialists work? They work for civilian governments, for instance, for the Civil Aviation Authorities. In the US, that's the FAA. In Australia, it's CASA. Civil spaceflight agencies, accident investigation boards. Every country that has aviation has some form of accident investigation unit, and often investigations are international, and the companies that make the planes can also contribute to these investigations. Every military and branch of the military that has pilots needs aerospace medicine specialists to help look after them. Also the private sector, whether this is commercial aviation, commercial spaceflight, or travel medicine. And also academic medicine, academic medical centres, universities and research organisations. The Aerospace Medical Association is the international leader in aerospace medicine and human performance. It has an annual scientific meeting which is held in the USA. It also publishes a peer-reviewed journal which is called Aerospace Medicine and Human Performance. It has a goal of applying and advancing scientific knowledge to promote and enhance the health, safety and performance of those involved in aerospace and related activities. And ASMA members are based in many countries around the world, working in aviation and human spaceflight activities. Anyone who's interested can join ASMA, and if you're a student or resident, there's also an ASMA affiliated organisation called the Aerospace Medicine Students and Residents Organisation, which at the present in 2023 is only US $10 a year to belong to. And they run lots of wonderful free webinars and offer scholarships, and there are many, many other worthwhile activities conducted by this group. And the same goes for the Aerospace Medical Association itself. It has many different constituent organisations you can get involved with, and it's a really great group to belong to. So to sum up, this is aerospace medicine. Our calling is to push the limits of human physiology. Our task is to reduce the risk to human well-being in Earth's atmosphere and beyond. Our expertise is in integrating the human system into the technology that supports us. Wherever you go, or imagine we can go, aerospace medicine specialists can help you get there. Thank you.